Hello from Chicago, alongside Elliotte Friedman and Chris Johnston. NHL, how do we describe it? The car wash, the media day, the media challenge for some has come and gone, CJ.
The media torture chamber for some players, maybe.
Although, you know what? I thought I didn't really notice any, and maybe you can correct me on this, Elliotte, from doing podcasts with however many players that we did with over the past couple of days here in Chicago. No one seemed grouchy. No one seemed cranky. It seemed as if more so than ever players are buying into the value of events like this.
Well, first of all, it reminds me a lot of baseball spring training because it's early, it's relaxed, and the players don't hate the media yet because the season hasn't started. So, I think that makes a big difference. I think the thing that really helps is there's certain players that have to come. Crosby has to come. Ovechkin has to come. Austin Matthews has to come. And it's in Chicago, and Taves and Kane, and this year they brought DeBrincat, but those two in particular have to come. Nathan McKinnon, I think, has been here for 5 years in a row. Colorado brought Cale Makar this time. And I think that is important. Like Anja Kopitar hadn't come in a while. He came back this time. I think if you're not one of the absolute standard bearers, I think it's okay to have fresh faces, give people a break. And I found with this group, the fact that some of them were new or hadn't done it before. Nick Ehlers, I thought, was really good. I think that makes a big difference.
What was your takeaway, CJ, from the past couple of days? You talked to countless hockey players here for various stories. What are you taking away from the last couple of days in Chicago?
I got a lot of good stories, honestly.
First of all, was anyone cranky with you?
No.
Okay.
Not really.
The guys were in a good mood.
There's varying levels, I guess, of interest, but nobody was downright difficult, nothing like that.
Yeah.
And I heard a lot of good stories. I mean, I think maybe the guys know what they're getting into. As Elliotte says, no one's lost a game in the last week, so there's not the same pressure when we encounter them in our jobs. Matt Duchene was one that stood out to me, just talking about his free agent decision back, on July 1st, and how everyone just thought it's Nashville faded in the stars. And he said he was sitting there thinking of himself in a Habs jersey and just could envision both teams. And there was still a decision to be made. Obviously, he said him and his wife felt most comfortable in Nashville, but getting sort of a window into that stuff is harder as the year goes on. It's less of an appropriate question as time goes on. But right now, because most of the media haven't seen him since July 1st or he was introduced in Nashville, I mean, it's still the kind of thing they can talk about.
Always curious about the players that have most recently won the Stanley Cup as well. And you spent some time with Ryan O'Reilly today. What stood out from your chat with Ryan O'Reilly?
Probably where he said he didn't have any idea how much this would change his life. And he said that I asked him, what was the most interesting place you got into with the Stanley Cup? Like, what was the most, the hall pass, so to speak. And he talked about a night in St. Louis where he saw parts of that city he didn't know existed. And that everywhere they went, it's full police escort.
Yep.
Literally, he said, I felt like a rock star. Like, people are jumping to try to, just touch them, and not in a way I think he felt threatened, but he just said, even playing in the NHL for 10 years, he'd never seen anything like that. He said even when he got back to Ontario after they won, he's walking in Toronto and he's getting stopped repeatedly on the street. He said that had never happened before. And, obviously he probably transformed the way he's viewed from afar more than anyone with that playoffs, with winning a Selke trophy. I mean, that all happened pretty quickly. And, he just said you think about winning it, you think about lifting it, but you don't really fully realize what comes with it until he had, the last 3 months like he has.
Which player stood out for you, Freach?
I think it was Crosby and Ovechkin are about to play their 15th year.
Yep.
Everybody who's watching this right now as a hockey fan, unless you're really young, you can probably remember where you were when they started or what you felt about them when they started. Because of the lockout, they started the same year, 05, 06. Ovi's got the gray hair now.
Yeah.
Sid still looks younger. 15 years they've been in the league. And it seems to have gone by so fast. And, just hearing them talk, Crosby gave you a great answer for the podcast about what he would change about himself. And he said the way he talked to referees.
Talk to refs, yeah.
That was really good. Ovechkin saying that his future is probably going to be determined by his health. If he's not what he feels at a high level of a player, then that will be the end for him in North America. But CJ, just 15 years of those two guys. Like, it seems to have gone by like that.
Well, I've earned this gray in my beard because I was a young pup reporter when these guys entered the league, and I'm not anymore. You know what hammered it home for me? Ovechkin openly said he doesn't know in 2 years' time if he'll sign another contract in the NHL. And, I don't see that as a threat or anything, but it just shows that, we have to start getting used to the fact that these guys at some point in potentially the near-ish future won't be the faces of the league or this, they've carried this league for so long as
they've left it in a better place.
Absolutely.
Like, when they're done, they will be like, I don't like to compare, like, the NBA really changed in the 80s when Johnston and Bird and Jordan got there. And I don't like to make those comparisons, but I think when Crosby and Ovechkin retire, I think they will be taking the league out of the lockout and leaving it in a better place. That, I think, will be their legacies.
And maybe, sorry to interrupt, Jeff, leaving the league where we don't have a lockout, where they've taken them from the absolute worst of labor frustration to we might actually have a peaceful time here to let these new young stars come after them and really carry the flag.
Well, what are your thoughts on that situation from the Players Association point of view here in a couple of seconds? But just as a quick follow-up on Ovechkin, because in the podcast, Elliotte, we talked to him, as CJ talked to Alex as well, about what's next. And one of the things that you brought up, which is interesting, and this has been a plank for David Amber for a long time, is the Gretzky record of goals. Did you get a sense that it meant something to him? Because the first thing he said was, I'll have to score like 150 goals in a couple of seasons.
I'm not going to score 300 goals in 2 years. That's what he said. The impression left me, because I did ask him too, CJ, about that. Like, we met with him several hours after he made that comment about 2 years. And one of my favorite athletes of all time was Mike Schmidt, the Hall of Fame third baseman for the Philadelphia Phillies. And he retired in the middle of a season. Actually, I think it was like 6 weeks into a season, because he said, I'm not at the level that I expect of myself. And he walked in the middle of a season. Ovechkin's answer to that question said to me that he will not play to hang on to try to get close.
He's not having a 12-goal season at the end of his career.
He's not doing that. Like, he left me with the impression that if he can't be Alexander Ovechkin, he will walk.
So
I respect that answer.
He's leaving the stage while the audience is still clapping.
Absolutely.
This is not going to be Peter Forsberg. One more comeback. Got to stay in the league somehow.
No, that's the impression he left.
Unless he
with.
changes his mind. I mean, it's one thing to have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always stick to my plans. I mean, maybe when he actually is faced. I mean, look, he's coming off a 51-goal season at age 33.
Yeah. He's
so
still scoring.
He's still a Superman in this league.
You referenced the boogeyman, CBA. So we do have to pick up on it. So as we got here to Chicago, the players were meeting. No decision yet, but where are the players at right now? Whether they want to open this thing up again.
Well, I think they're pretty confident in what they're going to do before that September 15th deadline. I got the sense from speaking to a couple of the guys who are reps on their team, and the quick way this works is there's 31 team reps. They cast one vote apiece, obviously after consulting their teammates. So the Arizona Coyotes make one vote, the Toronto Maple Leafs make one vote, and I really don't believe they're opting out. That's just That's my personal view. This is not written in stone, and the vote has not been taken.
We're just shooting the breeze here.
But, my sense, quite honestly, is that this thing is even closer than maybe has been reported to an extension. There being enough in the air to make a deal. And, the caveat here always is this can blow up. We've seen these sides not always be able to get along at a negotiating table. Everyone's really encouraged that they've had 3 months of dialogue, like serious dialogue, regular dialogue, and very little of it has gone public. They see that as progress, that they're not leaking things to the media. They're not, at least as I can tell, they're not talking bad about each other, bargaining one day, talking
Knifing
badly the
other.
next day to a reporter. And, I really think something is at hand here. And let's see if they can get it across the line. I mean, I don't cheer in my job, but I'm cheering for that to happen, because I think it's the best thing for the sport and the fans, the people working in the buildings, and obviously our network too.
I don't disagree with you. I think that they have made more progress on a lot of issues than they're admitting. they've met a lot. They've met a lot to make no progress. And I think you're totally right about that. I think the interesting thing will be, can they get this done before the 15th? I don't know. My biggest question is, if the league is not going to pick up the cost for the pension, which it doesn't sound like is on the table, how do you solve that problem? And I'm wondering if we're going to see the salary cap get set earlier in the year. Because this year we had a situation where the teams thought it was going to be 83, the players thought it was going to be 83, and we didn't get there. And that was tough on everyone.
And some guys got squeezed.
And guys are getting squeezed. So I wonder if the solution is going to be that they're going to set the cap closer to the beginning of the season, because they'll know what the revenues are from the year before. There'll be less guesswork, and everybody can be prepared for it.
And I don't know where it stands as we're talking at this moment, but I know there's been some discussion about setting the salary cap for the next 2 years now.
Yes.
With not very much of an increase, if any, and then perhaps even having no escrow beyond that as the US TV deals come in, and finding a way to make the players happier on that.
So is that the
issue.
way to deflate escrow? Like deliberately?
That's the way to do it.
That's the plan that they're
until
hammering
the US deal comes
out on it. And, it's hard. It's sort of like judging a race before it's been run. But if they're able to maybe solve that issue in some way, I think that Elliotte would be an example of something that's going to bring today's player a lot of happiness in this deal. And one way maybe, that we start seeing the trade-offs on the tweaks.